Growing up as the middle child, Michael always felt invisible. His older sister was the star student, his younger brother the sports extraordinaire. Michael? He was stuck in the background, overlooked and forgotten. No one seemed to notice his quiet struggles or hidden talents. But years later, when Michael finally steps into the spotlight, the world is left stunned, and no one sees it coming. Between the gleaming trophies of his older sister and the refrigerator artwork of his younger brother, Michael Parker's report card lay forgotten on the kitchen counter. The straight A's that had taken months of silent dedication disappeared beneath a grocery list without a single family member noticing. 12 years old and already a ghost in his own home, Michael retreated to his room, the middle bedroom with the hand-me-down furniture and walls bare of the family photos that plastered his siblings' spaces. "Emma, don't forget your science competition forms need signing." His mother called up the stairs, voice brimming with the pride reserved for her firstborn daughter. "And Ethan, honey, your baseball uniform is clean for tomorrow's game." The familiar addition for his younger brother followed immediately. Michael waited, shoulders tense, for his name that never came. In the classroom the next day, Mrs. Hendricks handed back math tests, beaming at each student. "Emma Parker's little brother, right?" she said, pausing at his desk. "Your sister was exceptional in my class 2 years ago." "Michael," he corrected quietly, accepting the paper marked 98%. "My name is Michael. Of course, Matthew." "Good work," she replied. Already moving to the next desk. The school hallways operated like well-worn tactical routes for Michael. He navigated them with precision, avoiding the popular crowds that gravitate around Emma with her debate team victories, skirting the kindergarten wing where teachers cooed over Ethan's charming smile. His movements were calculated, efficient, the product of years learning to exist in spaces where no one expected to find him. At lunch, Michael sat alone, meticulously disassembling the computer code on his laptop screen. While other students shouted and laughed, he identified patterns, found inefficiencies, rebuilt systems with innovations no 12-year-old should comprehend. The cafeteria monitor walked past twice without noticing him. "Working on something interesting?" The voice startled him. Mr. Gonzalez, the new IT teacher, peered over his shoulder. For a moment, Michael froze, unaccustomed to being seen, especially by adults. "Just fixing some code," Michael responded, instinctively minimizing the window. Mr. Gonzalez's eyes widened slightly. "That's C++ programming. Where did you learn that?" "Taught myself, online." Michael's answers came in tactical bursts, precise and minimal. "That's college-level work," Mr. Gonzalez said, studying Michael with newfound interest. "You have real talent." The words landed like foreign objects in Michael's carefully controlled world. Talent, recognition. He didn't know how to process them. The Parker family dinner that evening unfolded with military precision. Emma dominated the conversation with her upcoming science competition, her parents interjecting with strategic questions about judges and competitors. Ethan bounced in his seat, interrupting with baseball stories that earned indulgent smiles. Michael methodically organized his food into sections, speaking only when directly addressed. "Pass the salt, please," he requested. No one heard. He reached across, invisible hands retrieving the shaker that sat directly before his father. "Did anything interesting happen at school today?" his father finally asked, gaze sweeping the table in a perfunctory check-in. "We're dissecting frogs in biology." "Tomorrow," Emma announced. "I made a new friend named Tyler." Ethan added immediately. Michael opened his mouth, the words about Mr. Gonzalez and the programming forming on his tongue. His mother's phone rang. Emma launched into frog anatomy details. His father helped Ethan cut his chicken. The moment passed. The tactical opportunity lost. Later that night, while the house slept, Michael's fingers moved across his keyboard with practiced precision. The lines of code flowing from his hands created worlds where his input mattered, where systems responded to his commands, where his existence left undeniable evidence. In the blue glow of the monitor, the invisible middle child built universes no one knew existed. Tomorrow would bring more of the same. More teachers confusing his name, more family conversations flowing around him like water around a stone. But here, in this digital realm, Michael Parker was undeniably present. He saved his work, closed the laptop, and retreated into sleep, already mapping tomorrow's tactical routes through another day of systematic invisibility. Emma's first place science fair trophy gleamed under the living room lights, commanding attention like a beacon. Michael watched from the hallway as his parents fawned over his older sister's latest achievement. So young yet already accepted into a prestigious summer program at MIT, Emma had become the family's shining star. His mother's voice carried across the room, pride evident in every syllable. "Just imagine where she'd be in 5 years," she gushed to his father, who nodded enthusiastically while polishing the trophy's golden surface. Michael's science project, a working model of a basic search algorithm that had earned him a B+ SAT. Forgotten in his backpack, mentioned once at dinner before conversation swiftly returned to Emma's triumph. "Michael, hand me that camera," his father called out, finally noticing him lingering in the doorway. "Need to get some good shots of Emma's trophy for the family newsletter." The family newsletter that had featured Emma's achievements in every issue for the past 3 years. Michael's one mention had been grouped in a family update section, his name misspelled as Michael. Downstairs, a crash followed by infectious laughter announced Ethan's latest exploit. The youngest Parker child had become the family's entertainment center, his natural athletic ability and charismatic personality drawing attention wherever he went. Coaches called him a prodigy. Teachers described him as a natural leader despite his mediocre grades. "Better check on your brother," his mother said, without looking up from Emma's certificate of achievement. "Make sure he hasn't broken anything valuable this time. Standard procedure." Michael as background support, ensuring the household continued functioning while spotlights focused elsewhere. In the basement, Ethan practiced soccer tricks, the space cleared of furniture to create his personal training ground. 3 trophies from his youth league, all earned this season, were displayed prominently on a shelf his father had installed last weekend. "Mike, watch this," Ethan called out, using the nickname Michael had repeatedly asked him not to use. The ball flew up, bounced off Ethan's knee, shoulder, then head in a perfect demonstration of control. "That's cool," Michael offered, genuinely impressed despite everything. "Dad says I might make the traveling team next year. Coach already talked to him about it." Ethan beamed, his excitement impossible to resent despite the stark contrast with Michael's own parent-teacher conference last week, which both parents had forgotten until Michael reminded them the morning of. "Hey, can you help me with my math homework later?" Ethan asked, still bouncing the ball. "Mom and Dad are taking Emma shopping for her presentation outfit." "When?" "After dinner." "You're making dinner, right?" "Mom said you need to make dinner because they're taking Emma to that restaurant she likes first." Michael checked his phone. No messages. No one had told him he'd be on his own with Ethan tonight, or that he'd be responsible for dinner. Standard procedure. Later, as Michael prepared pasta, the only meal he'd mastered through necessity, he scrolled through the family calendar on the refrigerator. Emma's events were marked in red, Ethan's in blue, his parents in green. His own academic team meeting tomorrow wasn't listed, though he'd mentioned it twice at breakfast last week. He opened the camera roll on his phone, finding the family photo from Christmas. Emma centered in the front, Ethan perched on their father's shoulders, Michael squeezed to the side, half his body cropped out of the frame. The perfect visual representation of his existence. His phone buzzed with a notification from his coding forum. The simple algorithm he'd developed had received positive comments from 3 senior developers. Anonymous validation from strangers who knew nothing about him except his username and the quality of his work. "Hey Mike," Ethan called from the living room. "Can you bring me some juice while you're in there?" Michael closed the forum, poured the juice, and returned to the pasta. Later, after Ethan was asleep, he would return to his computer and continue building the project that no one in his family knew existed. The project that made him feel visible, even if only to himself. The science fair judges had no idea they were about to change Michael Parker's life forever when they awarded his quantum computing simulation first place. While other 8th graders constructed basic volcanoes and solar system models, Michael had developed a rudimentary algorithm demonstrating quantum entanglement principles. The victory should have been a defining moment. Instead, it became the breaking point in the tactical assessment of his family situation. 7 p.m. The school auditorium hummed with activity. Parents clustered around projects, taking photos, radiating pride. Michael stood alone beside his display, eyes constantly scanning the entrance. His posture betrayed increasing tension with each passing minute. The awards ceremony would begin. At 7:30, his parents had promised to attend. "They'll be here," he whispered to himself, checking his phone for the 7th time in 15 minutes. No messages, no missed calls. The familiar hollow feeling expanded in his chest, a tactical warning sign he'd learned to recognize from previous deployments of familial expectation. Got at the adjacent table. Victoria Collins received constant camera flashes from her parents documenting her third-place volcano project. The validation radiated from their smiles, creating a perimeter of approval that Michael observed with clinical precision. He'd studied this phenomenon for years, the invisible boundary between acknowledged and overlooked children. 7:25 p.m. Principal Watkins approached with clipboard in hand. "Michael, we're starting soon. Are your parents?" The question hung in the air, incomplete yet devastating in its tactical implications. "They're on their way," Michael responded, the practiced line, delivered with mechanical precision. The same response he deployed at last year's piano recital, at his debate team finals, at the chess tournament where he'd taken second in the state. Michael's phone vibrated. The text message appeared with surgical cruelty. At Ethan's soccer championship, he scored the winning goal. "So proud. Sorry I can't make it to the science thing. Take pictures?" The message created immediate physiological responses: elevated heart rate, constricted breathing, peripheral vision narrowing. Michael had cataloged these responses before. Tactical assessment, direct hit to emotional center. Collateral damage, spreading rapidly. 7:35 p.m. First place in advanced sciences goes to Michael Parker for his quantum computing simulation, Principal Watkins announced. Applause echoed through the auditorium, hollow and meaningless without the specific frequency. Patterns of familial support. Michael approached the stage, facial muscles carefully controlled to prevent emotional compromise. Ms. Rodriguez, his science teacher, watched from stage left, her expression revealing tactical awareness of the situation. She'd observed the pattern before: Michael's excellence coupled with conspicuous absence of parental witnesses. Her eyes tracked the empty seats in row 7 where the Parkers should have been. The certificate felt lightweight, almost insubstantial in Michael's hands as he returned to his display. Around him, celebration protocols continued among other family units. He maintained standard operating procedure: smile, nod, respond to congratulations with prescribed phrases of gratitude. "That was remarkable work," a voice said, breaking his tactical isolation. Ms. Rodriguez approached, her assessment taking in the empty chairs. The phone clutched in Michael's hand, the subtle indicators of emotional containment. Truly college level. Thinking, have you considered advanced placement for next year? Michael's tactical defenses detected something unfamiliar. Genuine recognition. Not the obligatory acknowledgement teachers provided to maintain classroom morale, but authentic appreciation of his capabilities. "I've been working with some online quantum computing forums," he admitted, revealing intelligence he typically kept classified. "There's an MIT professor who's been helping me refine the algorithm." Ms. Rodriguez's eyes widened. "That's extraordinary, Michael. Would you be interested in joining an advanced programming group one run after school? We could use someone with your talents." The offer penetrated defenses Michael had constructed over years of tactical invisibility. Someone had noticed not just his project, but his potential. The strategic implications were significant. 8:15 p.m. Michael entered his home, certificate in hand. The tactical situation unfolded exactly as anticipated. His parents and siblings gathered around the kitchen table, celebrating Ethan's soccer victory with ice cream and excessive validation protocols. "Michael, how was your science thing?" his mother asked, not shifting focus from Ethan's trophy placement in the family achievement display case. "Fine," Michael replied, the single-word response designed for minimal engagement while preserving emotional resources. "Did you place?" his father asked, attention divided between his phone and Ethan's animated goal-scoring reenactment. "First," Michael said, the certificate already disappearing into his backpack. The information registered no tactical response from any family member. "That's nice," his mother said, words deployed without accompanying recognition protocols. "Ethan scored the winning goal against Westfield. Can you believe it?" Michael climbed the stairs to his room, the day's events crystallizing into a strategic assessment. The mission parameters had changed. Family validation was an unattainable objective. Resource allocation toward this target represented tactical inefficiency. At his desk, Michael powered up his computer. A message from Ms. Rodriguez had already arrived with details about the programming group. New mission parameters established. New tactical approach required. The breaking point had been reached. Michael opened a new document and began typing. Quantum-based encryption protocol. Project Genesis. Beneath his fingers, the keyboard clicked with military precision as he redirected his resources toward objectives with higher probability of successful outcome. The invisible middle child made himself visible in the only dimension that had ever acknowledged his existence, the realm of code and algorithms, where merit could not be overlooked and where excellence spoke for itself in a language of perfect, unambiguous precision. Midnight cast blue shadows across Michael's bedroom as the glow from his computer monitor illuminated his focused face. Lines of code reflected in his glasses while his fingers moved across the keyboard with military precision. Downstairs, the echoes of his family's evening routine had long faded. This was his time, his domain, the only space where he truly existed. 3 months since the science fair disappointment. 3 months of late nights, self-taught programming languages, and building something no one believed a young middle child could create. The app's framework was taking shape, an algorithm designed to connect overlooked people with opportunities that matched their hidden talents. Michael understood invisibility better than anyone. Now he was coding its antidote. Syntax error on line 437, the compiler warned. Michael leaned closer, adjusting his glasses with practiced motion. Outside, rain tapped against his window like distant Morse code. The house was silent save for the soft clicking of his keyboard. No one checked on him anymore. No one noticed the light under his door at 2 a.m. No one asked what consumed his nights. School has become a performance now. He maintained his B+ average deliberately. High enough to avoid attention, low enough to avoid expectations. His real education happened in these midnight hours, devouring online courses from MIT and Stanford while his parents slept. Unaware their middle child was mastering advanced computer science, Michael's phone buzzed silently. User Dev 22. Your solution for the API integration is brilliant. How old are you anyway? He hesitated before responding. 16, then added, almost 17. The response came instantly. BS, that code architecture is graduate-level work. Michael smiled. In this digital space, his age and birth order didn't matter. Here, only his mind was visible. Footsteps in the hallway. Michael quickly minimized his windows as his mother passed by, heading to check on Ethan, who'd called out. In his sleep. She didn't pause at Michael's door, didn't notice the light. Her footsteps retreated. Michael reopened his project, a familiar hollow feeling settling in his chest. Morning arrived too quickly. Michael closed his laptop at 4:37 a.m. Having solved a database architecture problem that had blocked him for weeks, 3 hours of sleep before school, it had become his normal. He tucked his laptop under his mattress, a habit born from the time his younger brother had borrowed it without asking, nearly deleting months of work. Breakfast unfolded with its usual choreography. Emma dominated conversation with her college application progress. Ethan spilled orange juice and received immediate attention and affection. Michael prepared his own lunch while his mother was busy wiping Ethan's mess. His father engaged with Emma's Harvard prospects. I'm heading out early, Michael announced to the room. No one responded. No one looked up. He stood in the doorway for 3.7 seconds. He'd started counting these moments before slinging his backpack over his shoulder and leaving. The online programming forum had become his real family. User Dev 22 was a software engineer at Google. DevArchitect 84 worked for a startup in Finland. They reviewed his code, challenged his thinking, and respected his ideas. In these digital spaces, Michael wasn't overshadowed by siblings with louder personalities and more conventional achievements. After school, while Emma practiced debate and Ethan had soccer, Michael claimed the public library's corner desk. Librarian Ms. Winters nodded as he settled in. She'd noticed his daily routine, occasionally bringing him a bottle of water or pointing out new computer science books. Working on something special? She asked once, not pressing when he gave a non-committal answer. The app was taking shape faster than expected. What began as a personal project had evolved into something potentially revolutionary. A system that could identify patterns in human behavior and match overlooked talent with opportunities. The algorithm was elegant, learning from each interaction, becoming more precise with every data point. Night after night, week after week, the project grew while Michael shrank in his household. Family dinner conversations revolved around Emma's achievements and Ethan's games. Michael's contributions were mechanical. Pass the salt, clear a plate, exist as furniture rather than family. Friday night, the breakthrough came. At 2:14 a.m. while his family slept after celebrating Ethan's soccer tournament win, Michael integrated the final components. The app successfully ran its first complete simulation. In his darkened bedroom, illuminated only by the screen's glow, Michael covered his mouth to contain his excitement. It worked. It actually worked. User Dev 22 single quotes S message arrived moments later. Holy shit, kid, you did it. This architecture is cleaner than half the professional code bases I work with. Downstairs, a framed family photo sat on the mantel. Michael appeared at the edge, half his face cut off by the frame's boundary. In his bedroom, centered perfectly in the glow of creation, Michael was finally whole, visible and powerful in ways his family couldn't begin to understand. The middle child had created something extraordinary, and soon the world would see him. Even if his own family never did. Graduation caps sailed through the air as cheers erupted across Westlake High's football field. But Michael Parker stood alone at the edge of the celebration, diploma clutched in one hand, phone in the other. 3 unread notifications from the MIT admissions office illuminated his screen. Full scholarship, housing confirmed, orientation details. Not that anyone had asked. 20 feet away, his parents clustered around Emma, their phones capturing every angle of her valedictorian honor cords. His father's voice carried across the crowd. "That's our girl, Harvard pre-med." Following her mother's footsteps. His mother beamed, adjusting Emma's cap for the 15th photo. Neither looked around for their middle child. Michael checked his watch. 12:43 p.m., 17 minutes until the family would notice his absence. A new personal record. He pocketed his phone and navigated through the crowd, invisible in the sea of identical blue gowns. "Mr. Parker," Mrs. Collins called, his computer science teacher breaking away from a group of faculty. "Congratulations, May T is lucky to have you." "Thank you for the recommendation," Michael replied, the words practiced but genuine. "I wouldn't have gotten the scholarship without it." Mrs. Collins glanced toward his family, still absorbed in Emma's moment. "Have they processed the news yet?" "They will. Eventually." Michael's tone remained neutral, masking the familiar hollow sensation beneath his ribs. "Once the Harvard excitement dies down, and Ethan's basketball recruitment visits conclude." "Their loss," Mrs. Collins said, squeezing his shoulder. "Send updates from Cambridge. The coding world is waiting for what you'll build next." Back at home, Michael methodically packed his life into 3 containers. 1 suitcase, 1 backpack, 1 cardboard box. Everything he valued condensed to portable units, efficient, practical, exactly like the code he wrote. The room's sparse decorations made the process quick. No sports trophies like Ethan's shrine across the hall. No academic awards wall like Emma's museum next door. Downstairs, the graduation party preparations reached fever pitch. His mother orchestrated caterers while his father hung Emma's enlarged senior portrait above the fireplace. Michael heard his name once. Instructions to move chairs from the basement. He complied, then returned to packing, unnoticed. At 7:12 p.m., guests began arriving. Extended family. Emma's friends. Faculty from school. Michael's invitation list consisted of 1, Mrs. Collins, who couldn't attend due to her daughter's recital. He positioned himself at the periphery of the gathering, observing the social dynamics with detached curiosity. "There's the Harvard-bound genius," Uncle Robert boomed, embracing Emma. "And there's our basketball star," he continued, ruffling Ethan's hair. His eyes skipped over Michael completely before asking, "Where's the middle one?" "Mark?" "Michael," his mother corrected absently already. Turning away, "He's around somewhere." Michael's laptop pinged with an email notification. His sublet in Cambridge was ready, 3 weeks early. Perfect timing. He slipped upstairs, confirmed the details, and booked his bus ticket. Departure. Tomorrow, 6:15 a.m. At 11:45 p.m., the party dispersed. His parents, exhausted from hosting, retreated to their bedroom without checking the second floor. Michael finalized his packing, placing an envelope on his desk. Inside, his itinerary, contact information, and a brief note explaining his early departure. Practical, concise, no emotional appeals. The house settled into silence as midnight passed. Michael ran a systems check on his prototype app one final time, backing up the code to 3 separate cloud locations. The algorithm was revolutionary. Pattern recognition that identified overlooked variables in complex systems. Ironic, considering its creator's life experience. At 5 a.m. Michael's alarm vibrated silently. He shouldered his backpack, grasped his suitcase handle, and balanced his box of essentials. With practiced quiet, he navigated the hallway past his siblings' rooms and descended the stairs that had never creaked under his careful tread. The front door closed behind him with a soft click. No dramatic exit, no tearful goodbyes. Just the efficient departure of a component that the system hadn't recognized as essential. But systems could be redesigned. Patterns could be broken. And invisible things sometimes cast the longest shadows when the light finally found them. Michael Parker walked to the bus station as dawn broke over his childhood neighborhood, each step increasing the distance between who he had been and who he was about to become. Code errors flooded the terminal screen as Michael pushed through another sleepless night in his cramped studio apartment. 3 energy drink cans formed a perimeter around his second-hand laptop, the only real investment he'd made since leaving home 18 months ago. His eyes burned from the blue light, but the code wouldn't wait. Neither would his 3 jobs. Morning. Light leaked through tattered blinds as Michael finally compiled the latest version of his prototype. 94% efficiency rating. Better, but not market ready. He logged the results meticulously, the same way he'd documented every iteration for the past 502 days. Organization remains his secret weapon. When the world overlooks you, you learn to track your own progress. The shower dripped behind thin walls as the ancient water heater struggled to produce enough hot water for his 5-minute military-style shower. Michael had calculated the exact water usage needed, 12.4 gallons to maintain hygiene without increasing his utilities beyond sustainable levels. Budgets weren't just numbers. They were survival. "You look like hell, Mike," Marcus observed, sliding a free coffee across the counter during Michael's morning shift at the campus cafe. Marcus was the closest thing to a friend he'd established, another overlooked talent who recognized something familiar in Michael's determined eyes. "How's the project?" "Rendering times are down 14% from last week's build," Michael reported, his voice measured like always. He never wasted words, a habit formed from years of being interrupted or ignored when he spoke at home. 3 major bugs isolated. Functionality at 94% in controlled testing. The cafe is filled with students whose parents funded their education, their laughter echoing off the walls like foreign sounds from another world. Michael served them with efficient movements, watching, learning, storing information about human interaction patterns the same way he stored code sequences. Everything was data if you knew how to process it. Between cafe shifts and night stocking at the local grocery, Michael found 4.5 hours daily to advance his project. The app's architecture had evolved beyond its original concept. It is no longer just a communication platform, but something that could fundamentally change how overlooked populations connected with essential services. He'd identified the market gap during those years, silently observing from the shadows of his family home. "Your algorithm looks promising," Professor Chung commented after reviewing Michael's work during office hours, the only professional feedback he could access without funding. "But these investors are looking for flash, not substance." "You need packaging," Michael nodded, face betraying nothing. Rejection number 17 added to his meticulously maintained spreadsheet. Each no contained patterns, data points that would eventually reveal the path to yes. His tactical approach to overcoming obstacles hadn't changed since childhood. Observe, analyze, adapt. The laptop screen illuminated his face as midnight passed in his apartment. A small map pinned beside his workstation tracked potential investors. Across the city, research compiled during lunch breaks and between classes. Red pins marked rejections. Blue marked potential second attempts. Green, still empty, would mark success. Michael's phone vibrated with a text from his mother for the first time in months. Emma got into medical school. Family dinner Sunday to celebrate. No question if he could attend. No acknowledgement of his absence. Just notification of another sibling triumph. He placed the phone face down without responding and returned to his code. 3 more hours until his night stocking shift. Every minute had tactical value. The breakthrough came at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, halfway through inventory at the grocery store. The solution to the rendering problem wasn't in the processing algorithm, but in how the data packets were initially structured. Michael abandoned his stocking cart, grabbed his notebook, and sketched the new architecture in furious strokes, earning a warning from his manager. Written warnings didn't register anymore. The invisible middle child had developed immunity to disappointment long before entering the wilderness years. 2 days later, Michael met Sophia and Raj in the 24-hour diner where he'd started picking up weekend shifts. Both brilliant programmers overlooked by the established tech community. Sophia for being a woman over 50, Raj for his thick accent and unconventional education path. Their combined experience perfectly complemented Michael's innovation. This architecture could revolutionize how disaster relief organizations deploy. Resources, Sophia whispered, reviewing his notebooks. The rendering efficiency alone would allow real-time coordination in areas with minimal bandwidth. We have contacts, Raj added, his eyes reflecting the same hunger Michael recognized in himself. People who might listen where others wouldn't. Michael nodded, face revealing nothing as always, but internally calculating new probabilities of success. The invisible middle child had found his tribe, other invisibles with the power to reshape the world that had overlooked them. Dawn broke as they finalized their partnership agreement on diner napkins. No lawyers, no fanfare, just 3 overlooked experts combining forces with tactical precision. The wilderness years had taught Michael everything he needed: resilience, efficiency, and the power of being underestimated. That night in his apartment, he allowed himself one small deviation from routine. A single glass of $5 wine to mark the occasion. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. The battle for recognition was just beginning, but for the first time, Michael wasn't fighting alone. The blinking cursor on Michael's terminal flashed rhythmically at 3:47 a.m., casting a pale blue glow across his unshaven face. 72 hours of continuous coding had produced the breakthrough algorithm that would change everything. His app, codenamed Phantom, had finally achieved the processing efficiency that major tech companies had deemed impossible. In his sparse one-bedroom apartment, surrounded by empty coffee cups and discarded energy drink cans, the middle child nobody remembered was about to become unforgettable. Server stress test complete. All parameters nominal, Michael muttered, checking the diagnostic readout. 3 years of systematic development, 14 rejected investor pitches, and countless nights of solitary work had culminated in this moment. His fingers moved across the keyboard with military precision, each command executed with the discipline he'd developed in those silent childhood years when nobody was watching. The tech forums exploded first. Developer Core's main thread reached 10,000 comments within 6 hours of Michael's initial deployment. Unknown developer, NJW, has solved the Renfield distribution problem, became the most upvoted post in the site's history. Michael tracked the analytics with methodical attention, his expression revealing nothing as his creation began generating the attention his existence never had. "You've got to take this meeting," Alex insisted, his voice crackling through the speakerphone. As one of Michael's only friends from college and self-appointed business advisor, he'd been trying to connect Michael with legitimate investors for months. "Westmark Ventures isn't like those other firms. Catherine Chun actually understands what you've built here." 2 days later, seated in a glass-walled conference room 43 floors above San Francisco, Michael executed the demo with flawless precision. The venture capitalists watched in stunned silence as Phantom processed their test dataset in 8.6 seconds, approximately 94% faster than the current industry leader. "This changes our entire approach," Catherine said, her normally composed investor demeanor showing rare cracks of excitement. "What's your valuation expectation?" Michael slid the folder across the polished table. Inside was a meticulously detailed business plan, complete with 5-year projections and scaling protocols. The number on the final page made one of the associates whistle involuntarily. "That's aggressive," Catherine noted, studying his face for signs of wavering. "It's conservative," Michael replied, his voice steady. "The application has implications beyond the initial market." data analysis capabilities. At this speed, fundamentally alter artificial intelligence development trajectories. The term sheet arrived 37 hours later. $4.2 million for 12% equity stake. Michael signed it without calling home. Nobody there would have understood or cared about what it meant anyway. Touchwire ran the first profile 3 months after the investment. Round closed. Meet Michael James Parker, the invisible genius behind Phantom. Appeared as a sidebar feature that quickly became the publication's most read article of the quarter. 4 more tech publications followed within weeks. Business Insider requested an exclusive interview. The Wall Street Journal mentioned Phantom in an article about disruptive technologies. In his new office, still minimalist but now occupying the 14th floor of a downtown tech hub, Michael assembled his core team. 7 developers, all selected because they shared something critical with him. They had been overlooked, underestimated, forgotten by institutions that should have recognized their talent. Deployment Phase 3 complete, all metrics exceeding projections, his CTO reported during their morning briefing. Server capacity expanded to accommodate user growth rate of 27% week over week. Michael nodded, reviewing the analytics dashboard with the same focused intensity he'd developed during those childhood years spent in the shadows between siblings. The company valuation had just passed $50 million. His phone contained 3 voicemails from venture capital firms that had previously rejected him. None of the messages or articles or valuation reports mentioned his family. His parents remained completely unaware that their forgotten middle child had become the technology sector's rising star. His sister Emma, now struggling in her first corporate job, still posted perfectly filtered family photos that somehow always cropped Michael partially out of frame. His brother Ethan's college athletics achievements still dominated their mother's Facebook page. Michael minimized his social media monitoring program and maximized the Phantom development environment. Version 2.0 would make today's breakthrough look primitive. He'd learned long ago that being invisible had its advantages. You could build revolutionary things while nobody was watching. The industry was watching now. Soon, everyone else would be too. Morning light seeped through the blinds of Michael's downtown office as he reviewed the final press release. Breakthrough Tech's revolutionary communication platform had just secured FDA approval, sending the company's valuation soaring past $2 billion overnight. The Wall Street Journal headline flashed across his monitor. The invisible genius. How Michael Parker's overlooked innovation is transforming medical communication. Michael's phone buzzed with notifications, 17 missed calls from his parents in the last hour. Security teams report multiple interview requests at the lobby. Anna, his chief of operations, reported from the doorway. CNN, MSNBC, and Bloomberg are setting up remote stations outside. Michael maintained his trademark calm, checking the tactical display of his office security system. The building's protection protocols were functioning perfectly, creating the buffer zone he'd carefully engineered between himself and sudden public exposure. Engagement Protocol Delta, he instructed, voice measured despite the chaos unfolding. Limited media access, standard background checks, timed intervals. Anna nodded, understanding the precision of his instructions. Your parents called the main line 7 times. They mentioned seeing you on Good Morning America. Michael's expression remained neutral, but his posture shifted subtly, a tell Anna had learned to recognize during their 5 years building Breakthrough. From a garage startup to a medical technology leader. Status on the Reynolds Hospital integration? He asked, deliberately changing subjects. Deployment complete, 97% effectiveness rating. Anna responded, respecting his deflection. They're reporting a 43% improvement in critical communication response times. The technology Michael had created from his bedroom during those invisible years was now saving lives in trauma centers nationwide. the pattern recognition algorithms he'd coded while his family celebrated his siblings. Downstairs were revolutionizing how medical teams communicated during emergencies. His secure line rang. The private number only 5 people possessed. Michael, his mother's voice trembled slightly. We just saw you on television. Your father and I had no idea. Tactical assessment was automatic as Michael processed multiple incoming data points. His mother's voice pattern showing genuine shock, background noise indicating his father and siblings were present. Emotional variables suggesting complicated motivations. Hello, Mother, he responded, maintaining professional composure. I imagine this comes as a surprise. Your system is saving thousands of lives, his father interjected, apparently on speakerphone. Why didn't you tell us? Michael moved to the window, surveying the media vans below. There were 27 science fairs, 42 academic achievements, and 4 national coding competitions, he stated with precision. I stopped tracking the missed events after that. Silence on the line as the tactical impact of his statement registered. We'd like to see you, his sister Emma said finally. We're so proud of what you've accomplished. Michael studied the family photo on his desk, the one where he stood half-cropped at the edge, his parents centered between his siblings. The image had served as both motivation and warning through the difficult years. I have a board meeting at 1400 hours, he replied, using the military time notation he'd adopted during his wilderness years. Security will clear you for entry at 1700, standard visitor protocols. After disconnecting, Michael initiated the company's contingency planning sequence. This unexpected family variable required strategic assessment, the same methodical approach that had built his success. Anna, prepare the conference room for 1700 hours. Family contingent, 4 individuals. Standard security protocols, privacy measures in place. Emotional support assets? She asked, understanding the significance. Dr. Reynolds on standby, Michael. Confirmed, referencing the therapist who'd helped him process his childhood. Isolation. The revelation phase was proceeding exactly as he'd once calculated it might. Michael had prepared for this tactical scenario just as he'd prepared for everything else, with meticulous planning, strategic foresight, and careful emotional distance. Outside his office window, the city continued its rhythm, unaware that a reunification operation years in the making was about to commence. The middle child nobody had noticed was now impossible to ignore, and the tactical advantage had shifted irrevocably in his favor. The boardroom fell silent as Michael's proposal appeared on the projection screen. His executive team studied the metrics with practiced precision, their expressions shifting from confusion to understanding. 3 years since Quantum Bridge Technologies had gone public with an IPO that shocked the tech sector. 2 years since Time magazine had named Michael one of the 30 under 30 transforming digital infrastructure. 18 months since he'd last spoken to his family. Target demographic analysis confirms our initial hypothesis, Michael explained, moving through the slides with the calculated efficiency he'd developed during countless investor presentations. Middle children statistically receive 33% less parental attention, 47% fewer developmental resources, and show 28% higher rates of unrecognized potential talent. Sarah, his assistant, leaned forward. Implementation timeline? 90 days to first pilot program, Michael responded without hesitation. We've secured partnerships with 14 school districts in underserved communities. Initial funding allocation, $15 million. The board members exchanged glances, their silent communications reflecting years of working alongside a CEO whose attention to detail bordered on prescient. They'd learned to trust his instincts, even when his proposals diverged from conventional corporate philanthropy. This isn't about tax write-offs, Michael continued, his voice maintaining the measured tone that had become his trademark during negotiations. This is about systematic identification of overlooked talent. These kids don't need charity, they need visibility. 3,000 miles away, Emma scrolled through another article about her brother's revolutionary software architecture, PhDs. From MIT were still trying to deconstruct how he'd solved the quantum encryption problem that had stalled progress for decades. The same brother whose science fair project she'd barely noticed 12 years ago. Her laptop pinged with a notification, another email from their mother. Subject line: "Do you think he'll respond this time?" Back in the boardroom, Michael's phone vibrated. Unknown number, but area code from his hometown. Fourth call this week. He dismissed it with practiced precision, continuing his presentation without missing a beat. Phase 2 includes identification protocols, talent development infrastructure, and placement algorithms designed to match overlooked students with opportunities that traditional systems miss, Michael explained. The room's attention fixed on metrics and implementation schedules. Sarah stayed behind after the others filed out, her expression shifting to something less professional, more concerned. The foundation's focus seems personal. Michael's posture remained unchanged, but something flickered across his features. All innovation is personal. That's why it works. The call came again that evening as Michael reviewed code in his penthouse overlooking the city. This time, he answered. "Michael?" His father's voice sounded older, more hesitant than he remembered. "It's Dad." Silence stretched between them, filled with years of missed dinners, forgotten achievements, empty chairs where parents should have been. "I saw the announcement about your foundation. For overlooked kids." His father's voice cracked slightly. "Your mother and we've been trying to reach you." Michael moved to his floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights below. His reflection stared back. No longer the invisible middle child, but the CEO whose facial recognition software had revolutionized security protocols across 3 continents. "We missed it, didn't we?" his father continued. "Everything important about you. We were so busy with Emma's achievements and Ethan's needs that we made you invisible." Michael's tactical response had been prepared for years. Detached acknowledgement, professional courtesy, strategic disengagement. The plan he'd rehearsed for this inevitable conversation. Instead, he said, "I'm launching the foundation next month. There's a gala." Another stretch of silence. "Would you and Mom like to come?" 3 weeks later, Michael stood at the podium, the foundation's logo projected behind him as he addressed rooms of investors, educators, and media. In the front row, his parents sat rigid with nervous attention, finally watching their son with the focus he'd craved as a child. Emma and Ethan flanked them, their expressions a mixture of pride and lingering guilt. "The most dangerous thing we can do to a child is make them invisible," Michael began, his voice carrying the weight of personal experience and professional authority. "The Neuralink Foundation exists to ensure no middle child, no quiet student, no unremarkable talent goes unnoticed again." His mother wiped tears as he continued outlining the foundation's mission. His father's posture had changed, leaning forward, hanging on every word, trying to make up for 1,000 missed moments in a single evening. After the presentation, awkward congratulations, tentative hugs. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. A strategic first step in a complex reconciliation process that would require time, effort, and honest communication from all parties. Michael had learned long ago that the most important code was the hardest to write. This would be no different. Bright rays streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Michael Parker Innovation Center, illuminating the advanced technology hub that has transformed his once neglectful hometown. Michael moves with practiced precision through the main hall, his confident stride reflecting the journey from overlooked middle child to technological visionary. The buzz of young programmers, fills the air as overlooked students from across the country work on projects that could reshape the digital landscape. Status update on Project Lighthouse, Michael requests. Reviewing holographic displays showcasing initiatives designed specifically for middle children and overlooked talents. Sarah approaches with a tablet. Full implementation across 327 schools. Nationwide. The identification algorithms have flagged 6,812 potentially overlooked students for advanced mentorship programs. Michael nods, satisfaction evident in his measured response. Retention rate, 94%, Sarah confirms. These kids are hungry for recognition. They're outperforming our most optimistic projections. Through the conference room glass, Michael spots his parents arriving for their monthly visit. 3 years have passed since the awkward reunion that followed his company's breakthrough announcement. 3 years of carefully rebuilding what neglect had eroded. His father, now retired, carries a binder of news clippings about his sons' achievements, a habit that began as overcompensation but evolved into genuine pride. They're early, Michael observes, checking his watch. My parents are never early. Sarah smiles. Except when it comes to you now. Your mother mentioned bringing your favorite cookies. Apparently, she's been practicing the recipe. The evolution of his family relationships unfolds like complex code, gradually debugging itself. His older sister Emma, once the family's soul, academic star, now leads the educational division of his foundation. His younger brother Ethan, the former family favorite, manages community outreach, using his natural charisma to build connections that Michael's introversion makes challenging. Michael, we've got confirmation, calls Jamie Woodson, head of technological development. The visibility algorithm just received Department of Education approval for nationwide implementation. This represents the culmination of everything. A system designed to identify and support overlooked children like him, deployed in schools across the country. The core technology, born in his bedroom during nights when his parents were focused on his siblings, will now prevent countless children from experiencing his isolation. Michael's phone buzzes with a text from Emma. Mom's bringing those horrible oatmeal things again. I've arranged backup cookies. Some things never change. He smiles at this small evidence of how much actually has changed. The family that once overlooked him now orbits around his vision, contributing their unique strengths to a mission that began in his solitude. Mr. Parker, CNN is confirming their interview for tomorrow, his media coordinator reports. They're focusing on your family's journey as much as the technology. Confirm it, Michael responds. But make sure they understand. The story isn't about blame, it's about recognition. Through the center's windows, he watches a school bus arrive, discharging 30 middle schoolers for today's special program. All middle children, all showing signs of being overlooked. They move with the uncertain posture of those accustomed to being forgotten, eyes downcast, lacking the confidence of eldest or youngest siblings. Michael steps outside to greet them personally. Welcome to the Innovation Center, he begins, making eye contact with each child. I know what it's like to be in your position, the middle. Not the first, not the last, sometimes not seen at all. The children's attention locks onto him, recognition kindling in their expressions. By the end of today, you'll understand something crucial. Your perspective is unique. Being in the middle gives you vision others don't have. You see patterns others miss. His parents approach from the parking lot, their body language showing the progress of years of family therapy. His mother holds a container of cookies. His father carries a newspaper featuring Michael's latest technological breakthrough. Your family dynamics don't determine your destiny, Michael continues addressing the students. They shape your perspective. And perspective is the most valuable asset in innovation. As the students file into the center, Michael turns to greet his parents. The embrace they share contains the complex history of neglect, discovery, reconciliation, and growth. Their relationship bears the scars of the past, but also the strength of honest reconstruction. Later, standing at the podium in the main hall, Michael addresses the gathered families, educators, and media. The Visibility Initiative goes nationwide today, he announces to applause. Using advanced recognition algorithms, we'll identify overlooked children and provide them with targeted resources, mentorship, and opportunities. From the front row, his once neglectful family watches with tearful pride. The journey from invisibility to recognition has come full circle. This technology exists because I was overlooked, Michael concludes. Sometimes our greatest contributions come from our deepest wounds. I was the invisible middle child. Now we're ensuring no child remains unseen. As night falls over the Innovation Center, Michael stands in his office overlooking the city. The center's lights cast a glow across the community that once had no place for him. On his desk sits a family photo, not one of the old images where he was pushed to the margins, but a new one, with Michael in the center, surrounded by family and team members who now recognize his vision. The overlooked middle child has not only been seen, but has transformed his experience into a legacy that will ensure generations of middle children never know the invisibility that once defined him.